Good morning. I hope everybody is doing great. I hope everyone had a wonderful night's sleep. I've been up now for about 3 hours, I think. Checked emails, did all that good stuff. Good morning, sweet Casey. How are you, lovely? I was checking my emails and stuff like that. I'm glad you did too, sweetheart. Sometimes it just really helps to get a really good solid sleep. Doesn't come very often, but but I was checking my emails and stuff this morning and just looking for really cool stories, and I came across this one. Y'all may have heard of this one. It was in the news, but sometimes it's just really hard when you're watching different reports and stuff to get the whole story. So when I ran across this episode, I was like, yeah, I definitely need to share this one because this one puts everything together with a nice little bow. I don't remember all of the details. I don't remember if they found the person who did this or anything like that, but I do remember the case happening. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get into it. So let's see what they got to say.
Her son remained calm as the judge read the sentence, death by execution.
Josue Flores was murdered last Tuesday on his way home from school.
The men confessed to shooting the teen execution style.
There was some satanic type activity taking place.
Officers tell us Trujillo stabbed her boyfriend with stiletto heel shoes.
2-year-old Riley Ann Sawyer's brutal killing shocked the nation. She was beaten to death, stuffed in a plastic box found by a fisherman in Galveston Bay.
Former NFL player Antonio Armstrong Sr. and his wife, Dawn Armstrong, were murdered.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Antonio Armstrong Jr., guilty.
One by one, they described the deaths of the alleged other 8 victims of the convicted rail car killer.
You see things in this job that, unfortunately, you witness man's inhumanity to man. And there's no way some of it ain't gonna rub off on you or gonna stick to you. And this one stuck to me, pretty much because it was a child. And it was our job to protect her. And we felt like that we hadn't accomplished our job, that we let her down.
He said, okay, the next time she screams, we're gonna take her into the bathtub. And of course she's gonna scream the way he was hitting her with that belt.
She wanted us to find her, God wanted us to find her, the universe wanted us to find her, whoever, and they wanted to make sure that the people that did that to her couldn't do it to anybody else.
And the last words that Riley said was,
I love you, Mom.
I love you, Bobby. That's a quote from the mother. Excuse me.
Galveston's West Bay attracts sports fishermen looking for the perfect catch. Late Monday night on a marshy, isolated island west-southwest of the causeway, a fisherman made a gruesome find.
He discovered a container. He checked the container and found what he believed to be a body.
Investigators say preliminary autopsy results reveal the body is that of a 2 to 5-year-old white female, 32 to 34 inches tall, weighing 25 to 30 pounds.
Call came in. They wanted me to go and meet a fisherman who, quote unquote, found something suspicious on an island. My name, Jimmy Gillane. I was with the sheriff department back then. They told me he believes he found a body. I said, okay, I checked en route. We met the fisherman at his house. He was gracious enough to put us in his boat and bring us back to where he had found it. Well, it was dark. It wasn't cold. It was maybe in the high 40s, 48, 49. It was a clear night. We got off. And I went up to there was a plastic tote that you get like at Walmart or Home Depot or Lowe's, somewhere like that. He pointed it out to me. He wouldn't approach it again. Well, I went up. He said that he had seen a child's shoe, and that when he opened the container, it was flashing at him. So I knew what kind of shoes he was talking about. I'd bought some for my niece. So I go over there, I pull the top off and I see the shoe. It's flashing. She was double bagged in trash bags. I grabbed the plastic and I pulled it open. And it was the rest of her leg. So we immediately backed out, closed it, and called for ID and CID, Marine Division, because they had to get a boat in the water, bring our people out. Nothing prepares you for it. And once you see it, you'll never stop seeing it. It's eventually you got to make friends with it, or you'll drive yourself crazy thinking about it. And I'll tell you what, that was the coldest, quietest night I'd ever spent on the water out here. They brought her down here to the old causeway, not the new causeway, but the old one, and they threw her off the old causeway. It traveled a distance of a little over 5 miles from the old causeway to where we found it. I guess that was part of it. They threw her away like a piece of garbage. That she didn't mean anything to them, any more to even the mother, than to throw your child away like in a trash bag and stuff her body in that tote. It was a light blue tote. I won't buy one to this day, but how you could do that, how a person could do that, is just beyond me. So I don't think I'll ever have an answer to that question.
What was it like waiting here and seeing that boat come in?
Well, the anticipation was pretty high at the time. We had preliminary information as to what it was, but it wasn't until they started coming up that we realized that we did have a child.
And it was like, oh my God, here we go. Here's another one, another child case. Lieutenant Tommy Hanson, Galveston County Sheriff's Office, and I was the lieutenant in CID working with Mike on this case.
My name is Michael Berry, was a sergeant at the time in CID.
We named her Baby Grace from that night.
But it was important she had a name that night.
To us it was, yes.
You'll see when we get to the office, everything surrounding this investigation was surrounded by the term Baby Grace. So it gave the child a reality to it by having a real name versus Jane Doe. And where did you go from the dock?
I went home and cleaned up, and then I went directly to the morgue, which is customary, to go witness the autopsy. That's the only autopsy out of all the murders that I ever worked that I didn't witness. I didn't watch it. I went in the other room.
You couldn't?
I couldn't do it.
I watched some of it, but it was really there to start the process to making this right, to gathering what evidence was there, what do we know about her and her injuries, as it later turned out, how she was dressed, her clothing, and all that turned out to be very key information. Because on a case, a child that age, their circle of life is very small. So once you identify them, you're going to know who killed them. Getting a name to that child was priority number one. What the purpose was and how it all happened, that's secondary of let's put a name to her first.
And at the same time, previously the day before, we had contacted Miss Gibson, and she came down.
She came to the medical examiner.
So you called for her quickly?
The reason for reaching out to her so quickly to Lois to do the drawing was, like the clothing, we couldn't take actual photographs and put those on television because they'd been on this child who decomposed so badly. So we knew that we just needed to get a replica of them as quickly as possible, and if there's anybody in the world that can do it, it was Lois Gibson.
I'm a forensic artist, and I was called to the morgue to draw a partially decomposed baby that ended up being nicknamed Baby Grace. So the worst thing about going to the morgue is the decomposition smell. The visuals, they're horrible, but you understand them. But when you're breathing in and out, you feel like you're breathing in dead bodies because the smell is so strong and horrible. So if you smoke a cigar, I'm completely anti-smoking, but I smoke a fat cigar, pull it in my mouth, out my nose, it kills 85% of your smell. It's very merciful. So I had the big fat cigar, I was finishing up, I drove up, and one of the homicide guys was outside the morgue with his cigar going.
How do you see a face in a body that has been so decomposed?
I could tell that she had blonde hair down to the center of her back. And I could tell the location of her eyes, lips, and nose, and I just drew a cute face. You just look at the location and you know it's decomposed and rotted and horrific, but you draw a pair of cute eyes because it's a baby. And there's no beard or mustache, it's just smooth skin. It's a smooth egg of a face. And then of course the lips are gonna be full and cute. And I went to dental school, so I know how to draw the baby teeth, the deciduous teeth. I went back to my office and I took the horrible pictures that they'd taken. I mean, there are great pictures of a horrible thing. And I did it in 45 minutes because I couldn't stand to look at the pictures any longer.
So that sketch was done in 45 minutes?
Yeah, it took me only 45 minutes, even though it was in full color. That was all I could really stand to look at the pictures. I gave the sketch to law enforcement and then I sort of blanked out. It gave me a nervous breakdown doing the case, I admit it. I was trying to hold it together and it was unreal. It ripped me up because my baby, Tiffany Celeste, looked like this girl. And so I go to the morgue and see a rotted corpse that looks like my baby. So I held it in, and just all of a sudden I felt like I was burning inside my head.
The story of baby Grace is breaking hearts across the country, and investigators say that's a good thing. Her body was found by a fisherman about 5 miles from the Galveston Causeway Monday, but they have no idea how she got there, which means she could be from anywhere.
We are seeking the national media attention because of that. Someone that might be from New York or someone that might be from Wisconsin may have seen something.
This is what she may have looked like, an artist's reconstruction.
We're 60% water here, so we, through the years, have inherited many, many cases, and this is an example that they weren't killed here, but we wound up with the body because they dumped them in the water. So having experienced that many times on other cases, we knew that it was important. Odds are she wasn't from our backyard.
Lois Gibson did a fantastic job on the sketch.
She was a lifesaver on this case, no question about that. Her and the media, because what we got from her, we gave it to you folks, and we wound up talking to media all over. As far as
Cleveland,
Portugal. Well, we did Portugal.
Oh yeah,
Portugal.
Because of
Madeline McCann girl was still missing, and she was about the same age, and she was the same hair and same everything, and we wound up, thanks to our friends at the FBI, sending DNA to Portugal to make sure that she wasn't Madeline McCann.
And the grandmother recognized it in 3 days. She had seen my drawing on a computer screen, and she had known that her little baby grandbaby had gone to Texas, and then she thought maybe that's her, so she connected it, and boom, boom, boom. She didn't want it to be her, but she solved it. And then I was at Taco Cabana, and previously I had a baby that it took 7 months to get identified. And her name was Angel Doe, and that detective said, wow, he knew that I was never forgetting the dead baby. So he called me and he says, it's gonna be over, it's gonna be Riley Sawyer's. I had seen Riley Sawyer's, but I was trying to ignore the news, and it took him half an hour because I said, don't tell me it's her if it's not. It will kill me, the disappointment. So he took a half an hour and convinced me that it's over. You did it, Lois. It's okay. Because he knew I was dying inside, so I started crying uncontrollably, and my daughter moved over 2 tables and acted like she didn't know me, and I just cried it out at Taco Cabana on I-45 in Louetta. Riley stays with me in a wonderful way that I was able to accomplish something that was extremely difficult. If this case was the only case I did in my entire life, my life would be worthwhile.
Hundreds of people gathered today in Ohio to say goodbye to 2-year-old Riley Ann Sawyers. They gathered at St. Bede, the Venerable Catholic Church in Mentor, just outside of Cleveland. Those who spoke at the funeral took comfort that she is now in heaven and that her story touched many people around the world.
It's hard for us to let her go, so innocent and so small. She did not get to live her life so soon you came to call. We know that you were with her and she was not alone. You saw that she was hurting and chose to take her home.
Riley Ann was born in Ohio but moved to Texas last June with her mother. As loved ones said their final goodbyes to Riley Ann, they prayed for peace and the safety of other children of the world.
The day after Thanksgiving is when the case really broke. And we were called. He contacted me and said, hey, you know, we need to go in. There's a lady coming in to be interviewed. She's coming with an attorney. You know, she's going to be interviewed. Cap wants us down there. I said, okay. So we go down here. We had no knowledge of what was about to take place.
Would you mind identifying yourself by name and date of birth, please?
Kimberly Treanor.
Had you identified Riley before she came in?
No.
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 So she came in before you even had Riley's name?
She sat in that chair. He's over to my right. I'm right across from her. And we're just doing a regular interview. Okay, tell me about yourself. You know, we don't even understand why we're talking to her, to be honest with you. And then after about 25 to 30 minutes, if not longer, into this interview, she's getting to a point where she says, referring to her husband, his parents don't know. And I said, don't know what? And she said that baby Grace is my daughter Riley. And he and I looked at each other and came back, and I said, are you telling me that your daughter, Riley Ann Sawyers, is baby Grace? And she said, yes. And we both had to act like we knew exactly what we were doing. And I said, okay, and I patted her, and I said, go ahead, keep talking.
How long have you been in Texas?
First came down the end of May.
Of this year?
Of this year, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I was here for a week and had to go back up to Ohio for a couple days, and then I moved down the beginning of June. I'm married to Royce Ziegler.
Okay.
The second.
How did Trenner make her way from Ohio to Spring, Texas and hook up with this guy?
She met him after she had left baby daddy and moved out on her own. Actually, I think they met even before she moved out, but she was communicating with this guy on World of Warcraft. And they kept communicating even to the point, I think even after she had moved out. She had made a visit down here once without Riley, went back, and I think he paid for it. And then it was the second time that she made the move. And that would have been June or July of that
So
year.
she came here to be with him,
Yes.
specifically.
But they met on World of Warcraft, the computer war fighting program. And what that tells you is how insecure she was in needing of him, or basically a sugar daddy or somebody to take care of her. And she was going to do anything for him she could to protect that.
Was she potty trained?
She was getting there.
Did that frustrate Royce?
Yeah.
Had you ever seen him spank her?
Yes. I mean, he really kind of tried to stay out of it at first. When we went to that realtor about the new house, that's when it really started with him. And I mean,
What really started with him?
we need to discipline Riley.
Okay.
He could not comprehend dealing with understanding a 2-year-old child. A 2-year-old's a 2-year-old. They're gonna run rampant and drive you crazy sometimes. But that's what 2 years old do, and he couldn't cope with that, and he was determined to change her habits, like she was a 15-year-old, not a 2-year-old.
It started off with discipline that morning. It was his decision. He was going to stay home, and he was going to help discipline this child and break the child of these bad habits of which he did not like.
He really wanted to stay home and make sure I was disciplining Riley.
Okay.
Like he had told me, look, she gets bad, you go for the belt. You don't take it. Riley got into something, I'm not sure what, and he started with it.
With the belt?
Go get the belt. I mean, it just escalated from there. He said, we need to break her. So he told me to go run some water in the bathtub. Some cold water in the bathtub. And I did, and he said, okay, the next time she screams, we're gonna take her into the bathtub. The moment she would scream, he would take her and shove her into the water. And this would just go on and on. And I mean, he wanted me to do it. He wanted me to shove her head underwater. And I found myself doing that and hitting her with the belt.
One of the things was that Riley did not like to take the liquid Tylenol for children. She just didn't like the taste. They held her down in the bathtub underwater, trying to get her to take the Tylenol, to teach her to take it. And finally, this is a quote by the mother, Riley was reaching up, please just give it to me. I'll take it.
She actually tried to get away from him a couple of times, and he had like a belt on around her and pulled her back, stopped her. When she did, she fell back and hit her head on the tile floor. That was the beginning of the end when she hit her head. And then, of course, then they tried to force medicine down her and hold her in cold water. And it was just one disaster after another. And this child went through hell on earth for hours and hours.
Towards the end, these are the words, and I hope I don't, but the last words were she was trying to,
It's heartbreaking to see grown men cry.
I've worked a lot of homicides. She tried to get Riley to stand up, and her legs kept crumbling, and she knew then. And the last words that Riley said was,
I love you, Mom.
I love you, Mommy. That's a quote from the mother.
Damn it.
Excuse me.
You looked in this woman's eyes. What did you see?
She had
no soul.
She had remorse,
Oh, she did.
but I think only because she was caught, to be honest with you. She was so wrapped up with trying to make this man happy and appease him that she was willing, in my opinion, to sacrifice her daughter.
And he closed the curtain and came out and said that we need to clean up.
Give me 5 minutes with this bitch.
Get rid of the belts, get rid of the pillow, get rid of anything. He wanted to scrub her down and with bleach and make sure there were no fingerprints on her. He had me get in his truck and we drove to Walmart.
They got bleach, tape, the container, shovels, all this stuff. Came back. They poured bleach all over her. They tried to pour bleach down her throat because they tried to give CPR.
They didn't want their DNA on her body.
He had worked at a funeral home. He had watched all these police shows. This came from her. So he knew kind of what things to do to maybe destroy evidence. We talked for about maybe 3.5, 4 hours, took a break, came back and did another 3.5 hours of complete confession implicating her husband. He and I went to our superior and said, we need to get eyes on her husband now.
Oh my
so
God.
Our superior sent a team up towards Spring to put eyes on him. Well, he was already gone. He was headed to the attorney's office. Then somehow he turned around and came back. Well, they all met at his house and he agreed to come down for an interview.
Today's date is 11/23/07. It is 11:12 p.m. Your name is Royce Clyde Ziegler, is that correct?
The second.
Kimberly, that's your wife, correct?
Yes, sir.
How'd you get along with Riley?
We got on good.
You ever spanked her?
No, sir.
Lying son
Never
of a
spanked
bitch.
her.
Not that I remember.
Royce, we've been doing good. We've been doing good so far. Everything's been rock and roll, pretty good. Don't lie to us.
I'm not lying. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Well, yes, you are.
I've told you guys everything I've known.
No, we got a dead baby here. And I'm gonna tell you right now, baby Riley
is baby Grace. Read my lips. I know that, and you know that.
I don't know that.
Yes, you
Yes,
do.
you do. No, I don't.
Royce,
I swear to God, I do not know that.
You're going to be charged today with injury to a child and tampering with evidence.
What did you find at the house?
They dressed Riley, put her in a trash bag, put her in the plastic container.
They put those clothes on her to bury her.
Oh my God.
They put her out on the shelf in the garage, or the shed for a little bit, the garage, it's a detach. And then this kind of went on for several weeks, if not up to a month and a half or two, deciding, okay, we're gonna bury her over here. They even took a ride out. They couldn't do it for whatever reason. They did 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, they found one place they looked at up by Conroe, and they tried to dig the ground. It was too hard, and they couldn't do it, so they took her back. So they were out, had been out shopping places to dispose of her. Doing all that, he was having some computer problems, and he calls the Geek Squad to the house to fix his computer. We later interviewed them because the computer turned out to be important to him tracking how to bury bodies and stuff like that. And the Geek guys gave us a statement where he could smell it, smell the body.
He didn't know what it was, though, did
Yeah,
he?
he had no clue.
And eventually, when they came here, they didn't bring any cell phones. They avoided all the toll bridges, tollways, so they could not, so cameras wouldn't catch
Could you imagine
This is his
going
plan,
somewhere
not
to
hers.
work on?
What did the computer tell you?
The computer gave us everything to know where he had been researching, disposing of bodies, burial sites,
cleaning up
crime scene.
What we did find at the search warrant was I don't want to say a suicide note per se, but it could be considered, and that it was admitted as one where he threatened to take his own life. He said that he was sorry for what he did, all this. And then of course we found a list of everything that was purchased at the Walmart that we confirmed was purchased and also recovered. So there was so much overwhelming evidence.
What's amazing is in the search warrant also was found a pad that said rules for Riley, and it was like 10 things not to do, and some of them were written in his handwriting and some were hers.
Have you changed your mind about talking to us and or asking us some questions?
Yes.
Okay, so you are here voluntarily?
Yes.
Did you request this meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
There was an argument between me and Kim. I basically was giving Kim an ultimatum to fix the entire problem because I was sick and tired of going out in public and Riley was running amok. I wasn't feeling so well, so I stayed home from work that day. And Kim and Riley woke up and they went out to do some errands. They came back. Next thing I know, I hear screaming. And the thing is, it's not my nature to hurt children. I never planned on it, and I wasn't in the room the day when all that stuff was going on.
Do you know how she died?
I wasn't even in the room. All I remember is I heard my name called out that day. I ran in there, saw Riley on the floor, purple.
I am not at all convinced that there's not more to tell. And the reason I say that is because there's been a number of times in the interview today when we have reached, you have good memory to a lot of things, but when we reach something that's critical or crucial moment, well, I don't remember, I blacked out.
He was really more interested in protecting himself and dumping the heat back on his wife than himself.
Well, ultimately, I
Point
blame
blank,
the mom
no
any
any
damn
question
way.
about that. It was all
Hands
about
down.
protecting me, and I didn't do this, and she did it, and it was all about him.
Typical murder suspect, to be honest. When they're going to give a confession, they're going to tell you the truth, but they're also going to minimize their involvement to make them look good.
Do you have anything that you would like to add to this interview, Royce, that number one, either we have failed to ask you, or two, you would like to volunteer?
That's as much as I can remember. If I remember more, I'll come to you.
What did you find when you went to Ohio?
The first time I went there, I spent basically a week there, 5 days, and interviewing family members. The grandmother, the biological father, uncles and aunts. I didn't find anything that was really negative towards Trenner, the mother. They had their problems. They were young little high school kids when they got pregnant, and you know. What I did find out, though, not about them when I went to Cleveland, but when I did some more follow-up about the stepfather. His daddy is from Arkansas and has a violent temper. And maybe that was instilled in the two boys, and maybe, I'm not saying that's an excuse, but you know what I'm saying?
2-year-old Riley Ann Sawyer's brutal killing shocked the nation. She was beaten to death, stuffed in a plastic box found by a fisherman in Galveston Bay last October. But her parents, charged with the killing, won't face the death penalty because Galveston prosecutors believe death sentences against the two would be thrown out on appeal.
If emotions and just the brutality of the crime alone were the deciding factors, the controlling factors in reaching the decision of whether or not we're going to seek the death penalty, we wouldn't be having this conversation today.
Galveston DA Kurt Sistrunk made the decision based on the law, a 2007 ruling by the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. The High Court overturned a death sentence in a similar case because there was no evidence the child's mother would be a continuing threat to society. Sistrunk says he doesn't believe it can be proved Riley's stepfather, Royce Ziegler, or her mother, Kimberly Trainer, would be either.
After a lot of deliberation, a lot of thought, consultation with other assistants and district attorneys across the state, this is our decision, and we're bound to abide by it.
In Ohio today, Riley's grandmother and birth father agreed with the DA's decision. Their attorney issued a statement saying they believe, quote, the death penalty would be too easy. The Sawyers prefer that Ziegler spend the rest of his life in prison thinking about Riley's death. Ziegler's defense attorney welcomed the decision.
We're happy that they're not seeking the death penalty at all, but we still have a capital murder case to try.
Ziegler and Trainer scheduled to stand trial in November.
Jesus.
Millions of people across this country took her into their heart. And there wasn't a day go by, not a day go by for me for years, and even to this day, people will ask you, how do you deal with that? How do you work those cases? How do you do it? And you just have to thank God for your family and your agency that let you do your job.
God, I can't imagine.
A gentleman who makes crosses made one for her. And all of us got on the boat, and he brought us back out here so we could put that cross on the island. Eventually, the owner of the island, he changed the name to Riley's Island.
Nice.
Occasionally, Riley comes back and visits, and I'm okay with that. You got to make friends with them. But any cop has those moments, and if they haven't yet, they will have.
It's a cute little thing.
We promised her that night, while we were waiting, that we would find out who did it, and we would take her home. We were her pallbearers at her funeral. And that brought some closure. Not completely, but it brought some.
Look how beautiful.
I'm glad we were able to take her home like we promised.
Kimberly Trainer and Royce Ziegler were both convicted of capital murder and both sentenced to life in prison without parole. Thank you for joining us for this season of The Evidence Room, but don't worry, we'll be back soon because we're already hard at work on season 5. If there's a case you'd like us to examine, please email us at investigates@kprc.com. And remember, you can get caught up on past episodes.
Well, that was a doozy. But at least they caught who did it. There's so many kids that this has happened to, and the people never get found that did these horrible things. They never get justice. But that was the one that I found today that I wanted to share. I think this episode was a really good synopsis of the case. And I really don't believe anybody could have done it any better than this. So, but with that, you know, I'm going to get back to work. And if I find something else that's cool, that's not widely exposed, I'll be back. I do know there's some new stuff going on with Bullhorn Betty. Surprisingly, right? She was arrested. I know I'm really behind, but she was arrested. And I think she goes to court for that the end of this month. But on the 10th, she's supposed to be back in Tennessee in court for her restraining order for Chris Proudfoot. This will be the 6th restraining order that has been awarded to the family of the missing 15-year-old from Hendersonville, Tennessee, Sebastian Rogers. So it's a lot been going on the YouTube streets, but you know, these creators, they need to be careful. If you're going to go out here and get involved and, you know, talk about people, you've got to be careful what you say. You know, people really need to get in and understand our right to free speech. It's not a right for us to go out here and say whatever we want to say about whomever. What it is we have the right to speak up against the overreach of our government. And our government can't stop us. Doesn't mean that other people can't. Doesn't mean that these other people can't get restraining orders because it constitutes harassment. You know, these YouTubers, they need some training on how to do things legally. They need to learn the law. You can't go around harassing people. You can't. It's illegal. So, and then there was more about this case where Bullhorn Betty is suing another YouTuber called Queen Bee. And I'm like, Lord, I watched that last night on Burnt Toast. And I'll share that probably later today, but I've got some meetings and stuff coming up that I've got to knock out, but we'll get that covered. It was some crazy stuff that some people are just, y'all, you can say, just bless their hearts. I mean, just bless their hearts. So, but with that, you know, I'm going to call it a morning and get to work, and maybe I'll see you guys later. Have a good one. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't. It helps with the algorithm. Thanks a bunch. Have a great day. Here's the outro.